Has this ever happened to you? You've been doing something for a while, and you've started to get into a groove. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it be hitting the gym, waking up early, eating clean, writing, anything. When you first start doing the thing, it can feel really hard. But after doing it for a few days in a row, it starts to get a lot easier. And a few weeks in, you're not even thinking about it. You're just doing it on autopilot. But then, you stop. You tell yourself one day off will be fine. What's the worst that could happen? But one day turns to two. 2 to 3. And before you know it, it's been weeks. And you're left wondering what the hell happened. As Desmond the Moon Bear famously said,
"How did I get here?"
After a few days of pain, you decide to bite the bullet and start the habit again. The problem is, it's painful. If you've ever taken a few weeks off from the gym, you'll know that one leg day is enough to keep you in a wheelchair for months. If your once clean diet has been replaced by enormous chocolate chip cookies, it's not going to taste as good as it used to. And if you've been waking up late for a few days in a row, waking up early feels like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's impossible. But here's the thing. There is a way to make all of these things easier. Keep going. I know, it's really counterintuitive. If that one leg workout was enough to cripple you, the last thing on your mind is to go back and do another one. But by hitting legs again, you will magically get rid of that soreness that everyone's so scared of. The same applies to cooking, waking up early, and of course, writing. You just have to do it again and again. I get it, on the surface this doesn't make much sense, but the truth is there's something deeper going on here, and it's called the repeated bout effect. Wait a minute, mate, just hold your horses. What the is the repeated bout effect? Good question. Here's what it is in simple English. The more you do a behavior, the less it bothers you because you've gotten used to it. Got it? Yeah, I suppose, mate, but could you please give some examples just to crystallize it in my mind? Sure. Let's use the gym as an example. When you go to the gym and do an exercise like lateral raises, for example, your body will experience a stimulus that puts stress on your muscles. This stress is the thing that leads to soreness. But here's the key. The way your body responds to the stimulus changes over time, which means just because your body reacted one way this time doesn't mean it won't react another way later on. Meaning, the more lateral raises you do, the less your delts will hurt. And the more dudes you'll attract. But that's another story. So, how can we use this knowledge and apply it into your life? Specifically when it comes to being creative. Well, the RB effect, that's repeated bout, not Red Bull. But according to the RB effect, the more we do something, the less difficult it becomes. Therefore, when you haven't written anything in years, writing one article will feel like a massive accomplishment. But if you were to write every day for months on end, posting consistently, the content doesn't increase in perceived importance. It just becomes something you do. The same applies to coffee. If you've never had coffee before, one sip is enough to make you feel high as a kite. But if you drink every day for years, then you're not even going to get a little buzz after multiple cups, let alone one. The same applies to food as well. When you start eating smaller portions, you will lose weight. But after that initial weight wears away, it becomes harder to lose additional weight. And the portion sizes that were once small to you are now just your normal portion size, which means you adjust to it, and your weight loss slows down. These examples make complete sense when I highlight them in a video, but this isn't the case in our day-to-day lives. We just don't notice them. Why? Because we can't see the wood for the trees. As Morrissey said, it's too close to home and it's too near the bone. We are really bad at realizing how much progress we've made, and we tend to lose sight very quickly because we adjust so quickly. For example, Ross, can you come here for a second? Right, Ross. Let's say you want to lose weight, because, let's face it, you're looking a little bit fluffy, and you decide that you want to run for the next 30 days. And by the end of the month, you've lost 6 kilos. I have? Get 10! This guy. Don't get too excited, mate, because after a while, the repeated bout effect's going to kick in, and your body's just going to adjust. That weight that was once melting off your waist like ice cream in the sun suddenly stops. You're still running. You're still sweating your guts out. In fact, you're probably running harder than you've ever run in your life. But sadly, the scale isn't moving with you. I'm sorry, mate. You know I don't make the rules. Are you gonna go train now? Alright. See you later. When you're in the thick of it, it can be very easy to mistake these diminishing returns for failures. But I use the word mistake for a very key reason, because there is no failure going on here. There's only adjusting. This is why gym bros have to spend more and more time in the gym and increase the intensity of their training. If they don't make the training harder, they don't grow. Weirdly, the same can be said for bands like the Rolling Stones. Just look at someone like Keith Richards. People are amazed that this guy is still walking and still touring. The guy has literally taken enough drugs to take out like entire populations of people, and yet he's still alive and he's still thriving. So much so that he and the Rolling Stones are still going on world tours in their 80s. How is this possible? Well, it's because of the repeated bout effect. I don't know if you know this, but the Rolling Stones used to get destroyed by their tours when they first started the band. When they first got going, it was common for them to play 2 to 3 shows every single day. And they did this for years. They'd be traveling from venue to venue, from country to country, sleeping on buses, sleeping on anywhere they could find. They didn't have beds most of the time. As Mick Jagger said, they didn't sleep for years, and I don't think he was exaggerating. When you combine that with the excesses of being a rock star, having worldwide fame, and having shows literally descend into riots quite often, you've got the recipe for ruin. Being a Rolling Stone was a very stressful situation, but what do we know about stress? When you receive stress, you also have the conditions to adapt, and that's exactly what happened with the Rolling Stones. Although the Rolling Stones weren't packing on muscle in the gym, they were experiencing a lot of stress that forced them to grow. Because if they didn't adapt to that stress, if they didn't grow to meet the challenges that they were faced with, they would have died. It's that simple, and that's why they're still going strong to this day. It doesn't matter if they're in their 80s. The world tours they do now are nothing compared to the baptism of fire they had to experience when they were in their early 20s. It's a night and day difference. So, as you can see, the repeated bout effect is a very important concept to understand. And now that you get it and understand what it is, there are 3 lessons I want you to take away from this video. 1. Starting small is the easiest way to start doing hard things. Much like training for 10 minutes on Monday will make training for 30 minutes on Friday feel that much easier, the same applies to writing and creativity. If you want to write a groundbreaking piece of content, don't try and write it all at once, especially if you haven't written anything before. Instead, just focus your efforts on writing a good, attention-grabbing hook, or an introduction. Maybe before writing an article in full, just dedicate time to coming up with better ideas to write about. Because by starting small, you're setting yourself up to do more later on. 2. If you want to fulfill your potential, you need to do more work. Like, I know what you're thinking, this is obvious, like what are you talking about? But don't be so sure about that, because many people drastically overestimate how much work they actually do. Most people who work typical jobs think they work really hard, when in actuality they're just sleepwalking through the day. You will very rarely find someone sincerely admit that they're lazy to other people. There's too much at stake there. And at the same time, there are people who are working at maximum capacity, but they're so insecure that they think they're not going hard enough, even though they're on the edge of their limits. So the point is, effort is relative and it's nuanced. But if we take the RB effect as gospel, it's pretty clear that your current level is not your maximum. Your current level is just something you've adapted to. Let me put it this way. If the Beatles put in the same amount of effort in their prime years as they did when they first started, they wouldn't be the same band that they became. The reason why they were able to create such groundbreaking pieces of art is because they were working so hard. Just like the Rolling Stones, these guys were working all the time, and they were constantly adapting. Work hard, adapt, until they eventually broke up. And when they did break up, they adapted to different conditions. I think there's a reason why the Beatles' work as solo artists didn't live up to their work as a collective. And I think it just comes down to they didn't push themselves as hard as when they were the Beatles. That's not to say they weren't working hard when they were solo artists, I'm sure they were. But when they were in the Beatles, that was a different level of work ethic that was required to make that work. Because when they weren't in the band anymore, there wasn't really a need to work as hard as they had. They were already successful, they were already rich, they already had legendary status in the music industry, and they already had a fan base that would follow them to whatever work they decided to do. Even though the Beatles were working harder than 99% of bands in their early years, when they were just doing hundreds and hundreds of shows and recording albums in one day, doing all this crazy stuff, it still paled in comparison to the effort they were putting in as recording artists later on in their careers. And that is how they were able to make such world-changing pieces of music. But let me be clear, this doesn't mean you have to bite off more than you can chew. I'm not saying that. Because if you do that, you're just gonna choke. All it means is, when you first make a small change, don't expect that small change to be good enough in the long run. You need the small change to get going, but it's only useful if it leads to bigger changes down the line. In the first example, I told you that you should start small when you first start writing, and I believe that. And that's fine for a bit, but it's not going to cut it in the long term. That's all. Much like building muscle requires progressive overload, the same applies to creativity. Just like Kid Cudi, you need to keep moving forward. 3. If you want to be successful over the long term, you need to take deliberate practice seriously. Let me explain. Most people think that doing the same thing over and over again is the key to mastery, but that's wrong. If you were to just play the same A major chord a billion times, you're not going to become an amazing pianist. You may be the best in the world at playing that chord, but on the piano there are over 4,000 different chords you can play. Just playing one isn't going to cut it. It's not going to make you a master. The same applies to working out. If you do the same reps and the same sets with the same weight, you're not going to experience growth. There's only so much an A chord and a 40 kilo bench press can do for you. And this is why deliberate practice is so crucial. Whether you're trying to improve your physical fitness or flex your creative muscles. Don't fall for the trap of thinking you're making progress when really you're just doing the same thing over and over again like a robot. When you do the same thing over and over again, you're not pushing yourself. Let's go back to the Beatles. If the Beatles didn't try to learn how to play more chords, more chord progressions, they didn't experiment with their songwriting, they didn't try and learn different instruments and expand their musical vocabulary, they wouldn't have made an album like Abbey Road, or any of their later albums for that matter. If they didn't grow from Please Please Me, and they only ever did the same thing, none of those later records would exist. The only reason their best work exists is because they pushed themselves. They put in years of deliberate practice to master the art of making music. In the words of Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there. Or, if we stick with the Beatles theme, what got you here won't take you here, there, and everywhere. Fundamentally, The main thing you need to understand about the repeated bout effect is that things may work for a bit, but after a while, you're just gonna get used to them. And when that happens, the ball's in your court. Are you gonna smash it back across the court like a prime Novak Djokovic, or lazily pat it back like my bored cousin? It's up to you. Seeing as it's high time for you to challenge yourself and try something new, I think you should check out Cortex. It's the first link in the description below. You can create your free account, and it's great for writing. I write everything in there now. Also, I've got a few links to some free resources that you can sign up for. There's my content creation starter pack, my Principles of Persuasion ebook, and I've got a free persuasion email course that teaches you all about psychology and being more persuasive as a writer. That goes really well with the ebook. And lastly, if you want to learn more about deliberate practice and how to actually do it, I'm going to make a video about that shortly, so like, subscribe, hit notifications, and you will be able to see that video. I'll see you there when it's out. Bye bye.